Everyone noticed Tomi the first time he walked into the hall. Some presences do not announce themselves loudly, they arrive like gravity, quiet, undeniable, pulling attention without effort. Tomi carried that kind of presence. Tall enough to command a room without trying. Broad shoulders that suggested protection. A clean beard shaped with the precision of discipline. But it was his smile that disarmed people the most, calm, controlled, almost gentle. The kind of smile that made strangers assume kindness before proof. The kind elders trusted instinctively. The kind women interpreted as safety. When Zara saw him, something inside her shifted, a small, hopeful spark people often mistake for destiny. He wasn't loud. He didn't compete for attention. He spoke slowly, deliberately, as though every word had passed inspection before leaving his mouth. When he laughed, it felt rare, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a long stretch of gray. And when he looked at her, it felt intentional, focused, like she had been selected out of a crowd. That feeling alone wrapped around her heart like silk. People around her kept reinforcing it. He looks responsible. He carries himself well. That one has presence, calm but strong. Zara absorbed those words eagerly. She had grown up believing certain things about strength, that it was quiet, controlled, reserved. That loud tempers belonged to weak people, while real power sat silently behind steady eyes. So when Tomi listened more than he spoke, she saw maturity. When he corrected someone gently, she saw leadership. When he refused arguments in public, she saw emotional control. She did not realize she was mistaking still water for safe water. The first red flag came disguised as nothing. One evening they sat inside his car, engine off, night air slipping through the cracked windows. The city hummed softly around them. Zara felt comfortable enough to ask what she believed was a harmless question. Why didn't things work with your ex? The transformation was subtle, but unmistakable. His smile disappeared. Not dramatically. Not with anger. It simply withdrew, like a curtain pulled across a window. Tomi said nothing. At first, Zara laughed lightly. Okay, maybe that was too direct. Silence. He stared forward, jaw tightening slightly. His fingers wrapped around the steering wheel, unmoving but tense, the muscles in his forearm visible under his skin. Minutes passed. Are you all right? She asked gently. No response. A faint discomfort crept into her chest. Did I say something wrong? Still nothing. The silence grew thick enough to feel physical, pressing against her ribs. She felt an unfamiliar urge to apologize, even though she hadn't intended harm. I didn't mean anything bad, she said quickly. You don't have to answer. He exhaled slowly and finally turned toward her. I don't like unnecessary questions, he said in a calm voice. The calmness confused her more than anger would have. Anger, she could understand. But this quiet coldness, felt harder to interpret. I'm sorry, she said immediately. The smile returned. Just like that. The tension dissolved. He reached for her hand, squeezed it gently, and said, let's not ruin a good night. That was the moment Zara could have paused. But she didn't. Instead, she translated discomfort into understanding. He just doesn't like talking about the past. Red flag 1, renamed as personality. As months unfolded, patterns formed like invisible threads tightening around her. Whenever Zara asked a question that brushed against Tomi's boundaries, he withdrew into silence. Sometimes minutes. Sometimes hours. Once, an entire day. No shouting. No explanations. Just absence, emotional distance wrapped in physical presence. And Zara would panic. Did I offend you? Please talk to me. I didn't mean it that way. Gradually, she began editing herself. Softening questions before asking them. Avoiding certain topics entirely. swallowing curiosity before it reached her tongue. He never apologized. But he always returned with that same composed smile, and she accepted it like reconciliation. People around them admired him constantly. He's so calm. He doesn't react emotionally. That kind of composure is rare. Those comments became reassurance tablets she swallowed whenever doubt surfaced. When he proposed, it felt like confirmation that her patience had been rewarded. The wedding shimmered with beauty, laughter, music, photographs capturing his steady smile beside her radiant face. She felt chosen, elevated, secure. She didn't realize silence had only been sleeping. Marriage woke it. At first, the changes were microscopic. A sharper tone when she disagreed. A longer pause before answering her. A subtle narrowing of his eyes when she laughed too loudly on the phone with friends. Then came control, slow, creeping, almost logical. That dress is too revealing. Why do you need to talk to him? You should focus more on home things. Each sentence sounded reasonable alone. Together, they began shrinking her world. The silence returned, but now it carried punishment inside it. If she asked what was wrong, he would say nothing. If she cried, he would leave the room. If she defended herself, his face would harden, not explosive rage, but compressed fury, like a storm trapped under glass. The night everything became undeniable arrived quietly. Zara asked a question she had asked many times before. Why do you get upset when I talk? The air shifted. Tomi stood slowly. Walked toward her. Closed the door behind him. The silence that followed no longer felt peaceful. It felt like standing near a sleeping animal that could wake at any moment. You talk too much, he said quietly. Something inside her cracked open. In that moment, memories rearranged themselves into clarity: the car, the first silence, the first unnecessary apology, the gradual shrinking of her voice, the constant need to maintain peace. She had mistaken intimidation for composure. Control for protection. Emotional withdrawal for strength. By the time she understood the difference, she was already living inside invisible walls. At first, the red flags did not look like danger. They looked like seriousness. Like authority. Like a man who knew what he wanted. His voice was calm. His words measured. His presence heavy with certainty. And certainty, to a woman in love, can feel like safety. Until the night she harmlessly asked him to remind her of his birthday month. They had been married 6 months. She had forgotten again, something he had mentioned once during their early relationship. She laughed nervously, expecting mild annoyance at worst. Instead, his hand came faster than her understanding. The slap was hot. Sudden. Explosive. For a moment she did not even realize what had happened, only that her cheek burned and her ears rang. How can my own wife ask me my birthday? He shouted, rage spilling out of him like something long contained. Zara cried quietly that night, curled into herself, telling her heart this was an isolated moment. Stress. Fatigue. A misunderstanding. But violence, once introduced into love, rarely travels alone. His strictness deepened. His temper shortened. If he said something and she didn't hear, she dared not ask him to repeat it. Asking could mean silence, days of cold, punishing distance, or another beating. So she learned to nod even when confused. To guess instructions. To anticipate moods. Fear grew inside her like a second heartbeat. He withdrew intimacy too. Weeks would pass with no affection, no warmth, no emotional closeness. Then, unpredictably, he would come to her, not with tenderness, but with urgency, as if she were an object for release rather than a partner to love. There were no embraces afterward. No soft words. Only distance. Her phone became his territory. He monitored messages. Questioned calls. Friends disappeared first, Married women don't need outside influences, he said. Then family, no one from your family will step into my house, he warned. After every beating came the same threat. If you tell anyone, you will regret it. The warning frightened her more than the blows. She lost 2 pregnancies during those years. Both after violent episodes. Both followed by his indifference, as if loss belonged only to her body and not to his conscience. He prevented her from working. Controlled every naira. Made sure she depended completely on him. Still, she smiled in public. Covered bruises with long sleeves and makeup. Defended him when people asked questions. Love, she believed, required endurance. But the disrespect grew heavier. Late nights became routine. Sometimes he returned with other women, bodies exaggerated, laughter loud, 3 or 4 at a time, parading humiliation through the doorway of her dignity. Zara began to feel less like a wife and more like a prisoner sentenced for the crime of loving the wrong man. Her only crime was loving Tomi. When she became pregnant the 3rd time, her body was already weak from the past. Dizziness followed her like a shadow. She moved slowly, carefully, protecting the fragile hope inside her. One night he returned late as usual. She had fallen deeply asleep from exhaustion. He knocked. No answer. Knocked again. And again. By the time she woke and opened the door, he had already decided she had disrespected him. The beating that followed was relentless. Hours blurred into pain. She screamed for help, but her voice felt distant, swallowed by the night. Eventually she found strength she didn't know remained. She escaped through the gate, stumbling into the street, bruised and bleeding. Neighbors had gathered outside, unable to enter because the gate was locked from within. They rushed her to the hospital. That night, she lost the 3rd pregnancy. Tomi never came looking. Never called. Never asked. Indifference can sometimes wound deeper than cruelty. After recovery, she returned to her family home. For the first time in years, she slept without fear of footsteps approaching in anger. He never reached out. It was then she understood the truth that shattered her illusions. She had believed she married an angel in human form. But she had lived with a beast wearing charm. Healing did not arrive overnight. It came slowly, through therapy, through tears, through conversations with people who loved her without conditions. Through relearning that her voice mattered. That her body deserved safety. That love should never require fear. Piece by piece, she rebuilt herself. And with time came wisdom carved deep into her bones. Still waters can hide violent currents. Soft voices can conceal sharp edges. Charm can be architecture, beautiful outside, hollow within. The most dangerous warnings rarely arrive shouting. They arrive smiling. They arrive patient. They arrive convincing you that discomfort is your misunderstanding. They do not attack first. They adjust you. They reshape you. They teach you to doubt your own instincts until their silence becomes louder than your voice. Zara learned that intuition whispers before reality screams. That unease is often wisdom wearing fragile clothing. That love does not require shrinking to survive. And most importantly, the earliest discomfort is often the purest truth. She did not just survive. She awakened. And sometimes, awakening is the bravest ending of all. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of moments you once explained away, if it helped you recognize a truth you needed to see, like, share, and subscribe to Geraldinho Stories. Where stories are not just told. They are felt, understood, and remembered.